So this is basically this is week number 3. Okay, so we saw week number 2, week number 1, week number 2. This is the last of the intervention, and as you can imagine, the boys are not participating. Okay, and when you're not participating, there's consequences to that behavior. So we're going to talk about the consequences here.
Meeting. It's going to be a short meeting.
Are you coming back next week?
It's a short meeting. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. We started out, we were going to have a project. All right, we were going to try to work together. All right. And I'll be honest with you, you guys got this sheet over here. My grandmother could do better than this. All right.
Oh, so she's a freak.
All right. I mean, you guys. You got a few check marks here, but you guys could do a lot better than that. So what I'm saying is that I don't think that you guys are participating in the way.
It's not. Listen, it's not our fault. Stop. Write that down.
What?
If staff see us, they write it down. Look.
I understand. But when I came in, I was expecting like last week we put on 4, right? I was expecting 40, and I was expecting 30.
Get the fuck out of here.
Not 4.
You want 40 for?
All right.
Exactly.
I can beat on 40 times our name.
I only wanted what you guys were doing already. We got sexy dancing. We're not getting any of that. All right.
No, you're not getting any of that. You homo.
So all I'm saying is that.
So who got the most? Read it.
The most. I mean, you got cursing here a little bit. There's nothing going on in sexy dancing. There's nothing with butt slapping.
What's slapping?
Sexy noises.
What's there to be slapping?
Listen, this is just not what you guys are capable of.
So read the names so you can read.
You guys, the consequence of this whole thing, all right?
Hey, Gypsy.
All right? Is that as much as I hate to say it, I have to pull the project off.
You have a wife?
I have to pull the project off. And the other consequence, and again, you guys brought this on yourself, the other consequence is that this is our last meeting for now. For now. You guys, I know when you want me to come back, you know what you need to do. All right? You guys need to get back on track. And the only way I'm going to come back, the only way I'm coming back here is when you guys
How you telling us to act gay and do sexual?
What the fuck, bro?
you guys know what to do for me to come back. All right? All right? And when you're done with your vacation and you go back to business, the way things went to go. All right? All right?
All right. Okay. So, comments? That was the final session. They're not cooperating, and this is it, guys, We're going to have to, we're ending the project, and it's all because of you, all right? You brought it on yourself. What are the guys feeling? Huh? They're feeling confused and relieved, but there's also a sense of victory, right? We got rid of this guy, right? Yeah. But you can imagine that they've actually worked hard to do that. I mean, they've stopped their old behavior, so they themselves have done something in a positive way. So what happened is that instead of the boys kind of escalating together and kind of increasing each of their behavior, they worked in a socially appropriate way to coach each other to stop doing their inappropriate behavior. And if you can get a sense, that's going to raise their self-esteem in themselves. Yeah?
And their positive behavior in residential settings being reinforced by the rewards and the privileges and
now they're going to get more privileges, and now there's less concern by staff. So whatever, if the staff is going to be, hey, all right, now you get more privileges, all right, they're going to be fine with that. But at the same time, again, the paradox here is that in joining with them and showing them that I'm aligned with them, that had an impact that was able to shift their behavior.
It seems like you freed them up to look at their behavior and they're sort of repulsed by the behavior they're asking to do.
Exactly. Yeah, and exactly. They're complaining. Like, what's this? You're telling us to do butt slapping. What's that's. They're basically saying that's inappropriate. What kind of therapy is that?
The reaction from the first video to the categories you listed, and to their reaction to the last video, it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So at no point do I compliment them. I don't give them a verbal reward, okay? But they are getting rewarded because their sense of esteem has gone up, and they've done free will behavior where they themselves have changed their own behavior. So that's part of the reward itself. So the reward is that they've succeeded in shutting down the project. That was their goal, and they've succeeded in doing that. As I mentioned, through their own free will, individually and as a group, they've exerted impulse control of the past 2 weeks. Okay, the reward of free will is self-esteem. Animals have no, as I kind of mentioned before, animals have no self-esteem because they only react to their own rigid instinctual behavior. Okay, as the boys have gone over and above their instinctual sexual behavior, they now experience increase in self-esteem. Okay, it turns out that after the intervention, there is actually a lower risk of them returning to the sexualized behavior because they feel better about themselves not doing the behavior. Okay, and in basically in undoing their animalistic behavior, they've raised their self-esteem. Okay. As I mentioned, I was with the residential facility for another 4 months, and the cottage staff reported that sexually acting out was not a threat to cottage safety. Okay. So we've kind of talked a little bit about impulse control. We've kind of covered free will, self-esteem. The point is, it's kind of a funny intervention. All right, and part of it is and the kids even laughed. There were points that the kids themselves were laughing at what I was telling them to do, and it's through humor that I find that that best breaks up problem behavior. The thing that I find interesting, particularly about paradoxical interventions, is that the human mind can only understand when they're in a paradox. A dog will never understand that it's in a paradoxical situation. Any other animal will not recognize that. In a strange way, when I present a paradox and the client gets it, that in and of itself will raise their self-esteem because they're getting that they're in a paradox. Okay? And since only the human being, only the human spirit can understand paradox, I'm kind of like boosting their self-esteem by just presenting the paradox.
It would be difficult to do a paradoxical intervention in a group setting with one individual, because it would seem like the group dynamic could really cause the paradoxical intervention with one particular person to blow up, as opposed to doing it with the entire group.
Well, I mean, in doing group interventions, what I'll sometimes do is I'll put it to the group. Who in here, from the group's perspective, who does a certain habit of behavior? In other words, rather than me saying to that client, rather than me saying, well, you have to, we're going to work on your behavior, I kind of make it into a group thing where the group where the client realizes that the group is seeing his behavior. But the point is that I guess, I'm trying to make it into a group experience, but again, my intent, just to let you know, my intent is never to embarrass a client, never to embarrass a resident. I don't want to do anything that will hurt the alliance. Okay, any questions, comments? Yeah.
It seemed like you had to filter out a lot. I mean, you got to know what you're doing. And to filter out, because they're really throwing a lot of stuff at you that could have caused you to react or transfer it. And you're really good at just filtering that stuff out and staying focused on the alliance.
Right, so to filter the things out, the reality is that I kind of expected what was going to happen. You know, I mean, I'm walking in there. I know that they're going to throw stuff at me. But I was also very clear that all I have to, my whole thing is I'm just going to say things and do things that will create an alliance. You know, that's my thing. I'm not going to argue with them. I'm not going to try to, you know, I'm not gay. I'm not like that. You know, why are you saying that? You know, it doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want, right? But my statements will always be, you know, something that will show that I'm aligned with them. Okay, so you know, so again, so normally paradoxical interventions are like, you know, this way and that way, and they're going up and they're going down. It's only about the alliance. If you ever watch videos by Mnuchin, Pearls, other people that are doing that do something with paradox, if you look at it in terms of the alliance, that's all they do, is they're just aligning with the client. Yeah.
Is this something that you think that is only really helpful in the beginning stages of working with therapy? Or is it something where, like, if you're going and you're finding that you're kind of hitting a wall or that the client has become resistant, that you could use as therapy progresses?
Mm-hmm. The answer is that you know, basically, let me say something. This is called paradoxical. The seminar is Paradoxical Interventions live. Okay. If I would call this attachment therapy live, I don't know. It sounds boring, you know. But that's really all I do. I mean, I say absurd things. I do absurd things that on the surface are counterintuitive, which makes it paradoxical. But at least my personal intent is just to align with the client. I'm just aligning, okay? And if the client is doing dysfunctional behavior or disruptive behavior, I'm just looking at the pattern and saying, this is the pattern you're doing. Is it really spontaneous, or is this a predictable pattern? So I try to get across to the client that from my view, from your view, you're thinking it's spontaneous. From my view, I think it's predictable. And let's see who's right. So I'm going to predict that you're going to do it, you know, this time, with this person, with that person. And it puts it back to the client to decide whether my view is correct or their view is correct. But again, my focus is simply on the alliance. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can always email me. I have previous CDs that I've done, and I have some other material. If anybody's interested, please see me.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay.